I were president. It would be great to be president of the United States. If I were president, that means after a big campaign with speeches and posters and TV ads, the people would have chosen me to be their leader. Years of planning and hard work would have prepared me for that day. If I were president, I'd promise to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, because that would be my job. Then I'd move to a mansion called the White House with more than 100 rooms, and I'd have to remember my new address, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. If I were president, I'd go bowling or visit a movie theater without ever leaving my house. I'd have my own chef and could eat whatever I wanted. I could even have 2 desserts every night. If I were president, I'd start work early each morning in the Oval Office. Although I try to do what's best for my country, not everyone would agree with my decisions. But I'd get help making those decisions from a group of people called my cabinet. If I were president, the people would be my boss, and I'd have to find out what they wanted. It wouldn't be easy. Different people would want different things. If I were president, I'd be in charge of the armed forces, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. If I were president, each year I'd give a speech to Congress called the State of the Union. All over the country, people would be watching and listening. I'd talk about how our country was doing and suggest ways to solve our problems. Imagine creating laws for the whole country. That's something Congress and I would work on together. Congress would present bills, which are ideas for new laws. If I didn't like an idea, I'd say no. That's called a veto. But if I agreed, then I'd sign the bill and make it a law. If I were president, the agents of the Secret Service would guard me. Everywhere I'd go, they'd go too. If I were president, I'd travel in my limousine or in my own private airplane called Air Force One. I'd meet with leaders of other nations. Maybe together, we could work to improve our world. If I were president, I'd comfort families that have been in an earthquake, hurricane, or flood. Then I'd help them rebuild their towns. If I were president, one of my favorite jobs would be passing out medals to people who have done brave deeds. If I were president, in the spring, I'd toss the first pitch of the baseball season. And in winter, I'd light the nation's holiday tree. If I were president, my words and pictures would appear in newspapers and magazines all over the world. Even my dog would make headlines. If I were president, the house I grew up in would be famous. People would ask my mom for a tour of everything, even my treehouse. If I were president, the people could only elect me twice. That's 8 years altogether. Then I'd have to find a new job and a new house. Some new president with different ideas would move into the White House. But just like me, the new president would work hard for the good of the country. If I were president, They might someday make a statue of me, like the white marble statue of Abraham Lincoln in the Lincoln Memorial, or the president's heads carved into Mount Rushmore. Or someday, my face might show up on the country's money. Did you know President Lincoln is on the penny? And President Jefferson is on the nickel? And President Washington is on the dollar bill? And who knows? Someday, I just might be the President of the United States. Thank you for reading with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe,